CJ Bryce.
So CJ Bryce he practiced yesterday. He looked pretty good. He will be a game time decision. He is trending the right way. I'm hoping that our doctors will see what they like and that he feels like tomorrow, probably after shoot around, that he feels good enough to go. It's completely up to him and our doctors whether he's going to play or not. But he did have a good practice yesterday.
He has been cleared though, correct?
He has not been 100% cleared. He's been cleared to be able to practice, but in order for competition, that's going to be one of those things that him and the doctor's going to have to decide on.
What have you noticed that you guys have missed without him?
Well,
areas?
Our depth is the biggest thing. If you look at my time here, we've had probably over 80-some games, and it's probably been 2 or 3 games only that I haven't been able to play at least 8 or 9 people. We're playing, 7 or 8 guys. The last 2 out of 3 games, I think we played 7 guys because Danny didn't play one of those games. But the way we like to play, the way we like to press, the way we like to run, I think the biggest thing that's hurt us is we don't have another sub at the guard spot. That's the obvious. The other thing is that it's tough, I don't care what sport you're in, to have one of your better players who's also a senior in the locker room not to be there. We're missing some of his production, 16 points, and he's our leading rebounder. So those are the 2 obvious things. I think our depth is the biggest thing because we haven't been able to press in any of the games that he's been out the way we love to press.
Does bringing one guy back though allow you to do that, or are you going to be in this situation even when you're full strength?
It allows us to be able to do it a little bit more. We will never be with this year's team 100% in, but it'll allow us to be 75%. If you look at the Virginia Tech game, not what hurt us that we didn't have another guard, but when Braxton Beverly ended up getting his 3rd and 4th foul, it changed, in my opinion, completely changed the game. So we just don't have depth. With this year's team, with 4 guards, with CJ Bryce, everybody's got to be on the same page. We can't have guys in foul trouble, but when you look at it without him or any of the other guards, there's a chance that it changes the way we have to play.
How do you assess DJ's transition into playing the 4 on occasion?
I think he's getting better. Initially, I know I told you guys before that where he struggled at is the defensive schemes, and sometimes because we're switching 1 through 4, he really has struggled. But he's been very productive. He's been a bright spot. I've been able to play him at the 4 with Manny and not drop off a little bit. And I think that's a good part about it. So I like the way DJ's trending. He's certainly helping our team in a lot of positive ways.
Coach, how do you feel about your team's position right now in the conference, considering how wide open those at-large bids can be right now?
Yeah, I'm like every other coach. I wish we won every game that we played, but when you look at our conference, it's so much parity. And even if you pull up the rankings of our conference, and even I'll take it a step further, most of the Power 5 conference throughout the country, everybody's right there. We've got 4 or 5 teams, I think, sitting right at 2 and 3, then a couple guys at 3 and 3, and then we got a couple that's, I think Duke's playing well, and maybe Florida State, and then I think everybody's the same, and then you've got 3 or 4 teams that, with 1 win. So I think on any given night, everybody can beat everybody. It's one of those things that I've told everybody, there's not one team that's dominant. If you had to say Duke is playing really good basketball, and you would say the same thing probably about Florida State and then add a Louisville into it, but most of us are playing kind of similar to each other right now. So, every game is important. Every game's going to come down to the wire probably. We've got 2 games this week at home. We've got to try to take care of home court advantage. But even as crazy as that sounds, I think I seen a stat yesterday where most of the wins this year have come on the road. It's been a different ACC season than it's been in the past.
How much has Manny helped you on the defensive side of the ball, and what do you want to see him into the ball?
He's been great. I mean, I don't know that I could have asked for anything better from a guy from a defensive standpoint. I didn't think we would get that, especially a guy who's had a couple surgeries and coming off a couple of injuries. For him to be as aggressive as he is on the defensive end, I didn't think we'd get that. And he's starting to play better. He's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with his arm. At the beginning of the year, I was on him about rebounding, and if you ever watched him early in the season, this left arm would only go to about right here because I think he was afraid of getting hit on it. Now he's starting to rebound with 2 hands and getting his arms above his shoulder. So I'm happy with him. I know his offense will come, and it won't be this year. It'll be in the next coming years, but he's a really good basketball player.
Kevin, what's kind of your philosophy when you are down because of injuries or whatever? Is the press the first thing off the table when you're talking about trying to preserve guys' energy, or do you use timeouts differently?
Well, the press is certainly the first thing off the table, and we've had to mix in some pressure. We had to do it out of timeouts at times. We had to do it out of the free throw, and instead of us pressing every time we score, we don't have the bodies. That's not an excuse. It's just we've had to be a little bit different. A lot of coaches in our league can play with 8 guys, but they're not the type of system that will press and get up and down. So we've had to be a little bit more creative in our situation.
I'm assuming that you've heard about CB's situation at UNC Wilmington. You worked for Jimmy Bass for a while. Are you surprised he pulled the trigger mid-season?
I would just tell you, man, I had 3 great years at UNCW, and I'm the coach at NC State. That's all I can say to that.
Have you had to make any adjustments with players getting extra time? Have you had to talk to some players and let them know, it might be 35 minutes instead of 30?
No, players love it. I mean, you have to talk to the guys when you're about to cut their minutes. But if you're gonna play them more, none of our guys want to come out of the game anyway. They could be dead tired and don't want to come out of the game. I haven't had to have those conversations. I think all of the guys that's playing know they're gonna play. I look at it the other way. We've had to live with some of the guys' mistakes, or if some guys are not playing well because I don't have anybody to sub for them, and that becomes a problem at times.
Is there something mechanically different right now with the way Pat is shooting his threes? Because he made 2 this weekend, but he's been struggling of late. Is there something, or is it between the ears at this point?
I just think he's missing shots, and I think he'll have a short-term memory. I think when you talk about shooters, they can miss 10 in a row and then come back and make 10. I think he's not shooting the ball well, but I don't worry about it. I typically don't worry about guys who are shooters because they'll find their way, and I think he will.
You mentioned stickiness after the game. Any stats that you guys can tell these players, this is what happens when you pass the ball around, this is the shooting percentages, it's much higher, or anything that you can maybe convince them, because they don't, I'm sure every player wants to be as sticky as humanly possible also.
Yeah, we if you look at our stats on the year, we've been a very good passing team, meaning percentage-wise as far as our makes. We didn't shoot the ball well against Virginia Tech, and we played against a couple teams. I would say Virginia Tech, Clemson, and also Notre Dame that all sell out to defend the paint. Obviously, Virginia is probably the best in the country at it, and you're going to get those shots. And when you don't make those shots, it becomes a long night. We never envisioned coming into the Virginia Tech game that we were going to take 33s. As a matter of fact, I knew they would take more than us. But some of those shots were presented to them, and we just didn't make them. We've got to get better in those areas.